Hello again. This is Paul Johnson, President of the Carver Sportsmen Club, speaking on behalf of the Rifle Range Committee and the Board of Directors of the club. Whether you are a new member or an old member looking to renew your understanding of the range rules of the Carver Sportsmen Club, welcome to this short 30-minute training session. Our rules were drafted by Bob Nocher in 1992. These rules in PDF format are available under the Range Rules tab on our website, www.carversportsman.com. Please print them out, read, and understand them. We all owe Bob our thanks for his contribution to keeping us safe for nearly a quarter of a century. The highest tribute and the best thanks we can give to Bob for his efforts is to keep our club members, our guests, and our neighbors safe for the next 25 years. After that, I'll have to look to our younger members and challenge them to extend the record of safety they inherited from us long into the middle of the 21st century. Before I get into specifics, I'd like to cover the general rules of conduct and safety on the range. Any infraction of club rules and regulations will result in disciplinary action as directed by the Rifle Range Committee and/or the Board of Directors. First, do not shoot anything until you have read the range rules and understand them. If you have questions, call, email, or ask your fellow members. Remember, safety first, and think of your fellow shooters as well as observers. All members are responsible for their guests. The rules of any firing range start with common sense. Common sense is the common thread that runs through everything we do on the range if firearms are used. We insist you bring your common sense with you and use it at all times. There is no set of rules that can cover every situation. God gave us common sense, and He expects us to use it. Safety is the responsibility of every user of our range. Be responsible for your safety, the safety of others on the range, and the safety of our downrange neighbors. Remember always that once you pull the trigger, you cannot recall the bullet. Always insist on the highest standards of conduct and safety from yourself and others using the range. If you see unsafe handling, speak up. Someone's life depends on you correcting unsafe behavior and preventing accidents. Only a clean range can be a safe range. Litter and debris is not only unsightly, but could pose a trip hazard for people with loaded firearms. Please pick up after yourself and leave the range in a clean and safe condition. While we are at it, those of you with pickup trucks, please consider emptying the trash barrels into the dumpster next to the pavilion if they are full or near full. Don't leave it for the next guy. Trash attracts insects and bees and can be both a hazard and a nuisance for shooters. If you see beehives, please get some hornet and wasp spray and remove the hazard. Your fellow shooters will appreciate your efforts. Range hours of operation are 8 a.m. to dusk, Monday through Saturday, and 1 p.m. to dusk on Sundays. We ask that you refrain from range use during rentals unless the renter agrees. Conflicts between range use and rentals are rare. We want to encourage rentals as a way to increase revenue to the club, which helps keep dues reasonable. Children are not allowed on the range unless accompanied by their parents or guardian, or unless participating in a youth hunt program with proper parental authorization. Children must be supervised at all times and may not use firearms beyond their reasonable ability to control them. It is the responsibility of the parent or guardian to properly supervise the youth at all times and to ensure a safe shooting environment for everyone. Semi-automatic firearms should be limited to single shots until the youth has mastered the rules of safe handling and loading. Absolutely no fully automatic weapons by anyone under 21 years of age. It is not safe to allow young people to use firearms where muzzle creep could cause a safety issue to the user and our downrange neighbors. It's important for all range users to understand that there are residential properties located approximately a half-mile downrange. Our range's berm designs, the design of the shooting pavilion, and its placement in a heavily wooded area make it extremely unlikely that a bullet fired from the range by a shooter following all the rules we are going to cover would impact outside the range. That being said, we as users must be ever mindful of the risks and consequences of a stray bullet. It is your responsibility to follow these rules and ensure others follow them as well. We will live up to our responsibilities to keep users and our downrange neighbors safe at all times. There is simply no room for errors and no room in our club for those who cannot follow these simple rules. Ignorance is no excuse. Learn and follow these rules or suffer the consequences. One of our range rules for all shooting is to blow your automobile or truck horn 3 times and wait 5 minutes before shooting. The reasoning behind this rule is that we have activities other than shooting going on at the club. People may be walking, hunting, or running dogs behind the range. This rule allows time for anyone behind or in the vicinity of the range to exit the area before firing starts. Please observe this rule, as it is an added precaution to keep anyone downrange safe. This rule is part of your responsibilities to know your target and what lies beyond. Another important rule is no shooting solid projectiles and buckshot from positions outside the range building, which is also known as the shooting pavilion. Due to their short range, this prohibition does not apply to shotguns loaded with birdshot. This means no rifles, no pistols, and no muzzleloaders, and also no shotguns with buckshot or rifled slug are to be discharged outside the pavilion building. I'd like to reiterate, we do not allow shooting with solid projectiles, that means bullets, outside the range building itself. The reason for this rule is simple. When shooting from in front of the pavilion, there is no protection from stray bullets fired above the earthen berms, which we use as backstop for our targets. The pavilion is designed to prevent stray bullets from exiting the range above the berms. These bullets could travel their maximum trajectory and cause injury to the people beyond and property beyond as well. The range building is designed with what is termed no blue sky protection. When you look from inside the shooting pavilion downrange, you'll notice each shooting position has heavy 6x6 wood beams directly over the area where shooting takes place. In the event someone loses muzzle control while shooting, these beams absorb the stray bullets and prevent them from exiting the pavilion on a path above the earthen berm backstops. This is added protection above and beyond the rules of safe firearms handling and common sense to protect our downrange neighbors from stray bullets. The only stall where standing firing of rifles and pistols is allowed is the far stall on the right-hand side closest to the woods line. All other positions are for sitting and bench rest shooting. We do not allow prone, that is laying down, shooting from any of our bays. While we're on the subject of stray bullets, let me state that you may never fire without an adequate backstop. At our range, this means all of your bullets must strike one of the earthen berms as close to the midpoint as possible. Targets belong directly in front of the berms in such a way as to direct the projectile into the earthen berm safely. Appropriate targets are targets that do not cause ricochets and do not leave broken glass and other sharps on or around the target area. You may not place targets on the top third of a berm, where a miss would cause the bullet to leave the range. We do not allow targets taller than 42 inches. There must be a planned margin of error that eliminates the possibility of a bullet leaving our range for points and/or persons unknown. Proper ammunition rules must be observed at all times. We do not allow the use of armor-piercing ammunition on our range at any time. Only soft lead bullets are to be used on silhouette targets. No .22 caliber rimfire is to be used on steel plate targets and silhouettes. You must observe the fundamental rule of firearm safety, which states that you only carry and use ammunition appropriate for your firearm. Do not bring mixed calibers and mixed gauges to the range. Use and carry only the ammunition for the firearm you are using. That means one gun and one type of ammunition at a time. Leave the others in your car and change ammo out when and if you bring out the other firearm. Always practice proper muzzle control. This means keeping your firearm pointed in a safe direction at all times. Know the location of all people in the area. Know how your firearm operates. Refer to the owner's manual or a gunsmith if you're not sure. Keep your action open and your gun completely unloaded. Unloaded means nothing in the chamber and nothing in the magazine. Keep your finger out of the trigger guard and your safety on except while shooting. Never handle firearms while people are downrange. Guns should be unloaded, action open, and stored upright while others are downrange. Do not display firearms except in the firing line area. Alcohol and firearms do not mix. Do not use alcohol or drugs while handling firearms or shooting. Be aware the definition of drugs includes prescription drugs that advise you not to drive or use machinery. Our tolerance for alcohol and drugs is 0. If you have been drinking or doing drugs at any level, you are not welcome on our range. We strongly advise you to wear eye and ear protection while on the range. Your eyesight and hearing are important senses for sportsmen and worthy of protection. We do not allow food, beverages, and smoking on the firing line. Lead is a heavy metal, and you need to wash your hands after handling lead ammunition to prevent lead poisoning. Smoking is especially dangerous around black powder. During competitions, do not enter the firing line until properly authorized. Obey all range rules and all rangemaster commands. Fire only at assigned targets. No cross-firing is ever allowed on our range. While shooting, if a jam occurs, warn other shooters and request help clearing the jam if you need it. Keep the muzzle downrange and in a safe direction until the jam is cleared. Check the firearm and ammunition to determine the cause of the jam, and take the gun to a competent gunsmith if you are unsure of its fitness for continued use. If a misfire occurs, hold the firearm pointed in a safe direction for a minimum of 60 seconds and eject the round, and deposit it in the red container for duds that's located in our pavilion. Always clean the range when done shooting. I'd like to take a few minutes to review rangemaster commands for modern rifles and pistols for those of you unfamiliar with them. I'm going to use an example where the rangemaster is asking you to load 3 rounds. Please understand that this could be any number of rounds depending on the event. The first command is 3 rounds load. Come to a firing position when ready. Load 3 rounds and assume a firing position with the muzzle downrange, safety on. The next command is ready on the left, ready on the right. Sound off if not ready. The third command is already on the firing line. No response from the shooters signifies a 3-second interval before the next command. The fourth command is commence firing, which means the shooters begin shooting their 3 rounds. The next command is cease firing, which is a signal for the shooters to stop shooting. The rangemaster's next command is unload. The shooters empty their firearm completely, both the chamber and the magazine. When the rangemaster is ready to suspend firing in order to score and paste or replace targets, the commands are: make pistols or rifles safe, bolts open, slides back, pistols or rifles on the bench or down. The next command is step back from the following line, followed by the command to advance and score. This is a quick review of the range commands for modern rifle and pistol events. We don't do these events very often here at the Carver Club, but we may have occasional events here, or you may attend events at other clubs where a review is needed. Remember, the undivided attention to the rangemaster, his or her commands, is needed to keep participants and observers safe. Your attention to safety is key to avoiding accidents. Remember that our sport, properly done, is safer than swimming, boating, and Pop Warner football. The next shooting discipline is military range procedures and commands. The rangemaster organizes and assigns the shooters to each firing point. One standard American 25-yard pistol target is installed in front of each firing position at 100 yards. I'm going to use an example where the range master is asking you to load 10 rounds each. Please understand that this could be any number of rounds depending on the event. For this event, there is a 10-minute firing time limit. The first command is load magazines with 10 rounds each. The range master then commands slow fire 10 rounds, lock and load, ready on the right, ready on the left, ready on the firing line. If any participant is not ready, he or she will announce to the range master in a loud voice, "Not ready on position X." When everybody is ready, the range master continues with the firing command sequence. Commence firing. When the shooters have finished, they place the rifle down with the bolt open, they slide back and step to the rear of the firing line, indicating to the range master that they are done firing. When the 10-minute time limit for this event has expired, or when the shooters have finished, as indicated by all shooters at the rear of the firing line, the range master commands cease firing, unload, clear on the right, clear on the left. The range master will look right and left to determine that the firing line is clear. He or she will then declare, "The firing line is clear. Shooters move forward and police your brass." Score and paste targets. Next, I'd like to review muzzleloading range commands, but first a few precautions directly applicable to these firearms. Please be aware that the Hunter Education Division of the Division of Fish and Wildlife conducts muzzleloading safety courses. If you are new to the course or need a refresher, we highly recommend these courses as they are well thought out, thorough, and taught by experienced, highly trained, knowledgeable instructors. Follow the link on our website to the Hunter Education Program for course availability and schedules. If you're using an antique muzzleloader, be sure to have it examined by a competent gunsmith before you use it, and periodically thereafter to ensure its continued fitness for safe use. Do not fire Damascus twist steel barreled shotguns. Use only black powder or replica black powder in all muzzleloaders. Pyrodex is the most commonly known brand name of replica black powder. Never use modern smokeless powders in these guns, as they are not designed to withstand the chamber pressures that result from using smokeless powders. The most likely result will be a catastrophic failure in the form of an exploded barrel, which would injure the shooter and any bystanders. Never smoke in an area that contains black powder and/or black powder substitutes like Pyrodex. Store black powder and black powder substitutes away from heat, sparks, and static electricity. Use only approved static-free devices in storage containers for your muzzleloading powders. Never pour black powder or black powder substitute directly into a muzzleloader from a flask or powder horn or can. Always use a proper powder measure. Because you're loading from the muzzle end, muzzleloaders require more care than modern firearms while loading to ensure the muzzle is pointed in a safe direction. Use a marked ramrod to see if a muzzleloader is loaded. Never look into the barrel. Be sure to seat the ball, bullet, or wad and shot directly on top of the powder charge. A gap between the projectile and the powder charge could damage the firearm and injure the shooter and any bystanders. Be aware that round balls are prone to glance and ricochet. Consider this when choosing target placement to minimize risk. Treat misfires or failure to fire with extreme caution. Keep the gun pointed in a safe direction downrange and wait at least 1 full minute before repriming. Seek competent assistance in approved methods for removing projectiles that have not fired from your firearm. All other rules of safe firearms handling that apply to modern firearms apply to muzzleloaders as well, including but not limited to treating every gun as if it were loaded, know your target, what lies beyond, store your muzzleloader unloaded, store powder and caps separately in locked compartments out of the reach of children, use safety glasses and hearing protection, and absolutely never use alcohol or drugs. Now that we've covered the general safety conditions for muzzleloader, let me move on to loading and firing procedures for cap-lock muzzleloading rifles and pistols. Ensure the gun is unloaded by running a marked ramrod down the barrel to the breech plug. Observe that the ramrod is flush to the end of the muzzle. Set the hammer at half-cock. This is your safety for muzzleloaders. Clean all oils and greases from the barrel with a cleaning rod and patch using approved procedures. With the muzzleloader pointed in a safe direction, place a cap on the nipple, fully cock the hammer, and fire to dry out the base of the bore and nipple. Repeat if required. With the muzzleloader pointed up and no part of the body over the muzzle, pour a measured charge down the barrel. It is important to emphasize that you only use charges recommended by the manufacturer. To ensure that your powder fully enters the drum and nipple area, tap the barrel in front of the lock several times. Center a properly sized, well-greased patch over the bore and press a round ball or well-greased mini or conical ball with the sprue up into the muzzle. Use only approved projectiles, patches, and greases for your firearm. With a ball starter and ramrod, push the round, minis, or conical balls down on top of the powder firmly, but not without crushing the powder. It is very important to seat the ball firmly against the powder so that no airspace exists between the ball and the powder charge. A good method of determining this is to insert a ramrod when the firearm is fully loaded and mark the ramrod at the muzzle for future reference. With the gun pointed in a safe direction and the hammer at half-cock, place a percussion cap on the nipple. The gun is now loaded. Pull the hammer back to the fully cocked position with the gun pointed in a safe direction. You are now ready to fire using proper aiming techniques. After firing, wait a full minute to begin reloading. This will allow any remaining unburnt powder and sparks in the barrel to burn out. If a misfire or failure to fire occurs, wait at least one full minute with the gun pointed at the target. Place a new cap on the nipple and try to fire again. If the gun still fails to fire, refer to accepted procedures to unload the firearm. Now for the procedures for loading and firing a flintlock muzzle-loading rifles and pistols. Ensure the gun is unloaded by running a marked ramrod down the barrel to the breech plug. Observe that the ramrod line is flush to the end of the muzzle. Set the hammer at half-cock. This is your safety for muzzleloaders. Clean all oil and grease from the barrel with a cleaning rod and patch using approved procedures. With the muzzle pointed in a safe direction, place a few grains of 4F or 3F powder as indicated by the manufacturer's recommendations in the flash pan. Close the frizzen over the primed flash pan. Fully cock the hammer and fire to dry out the pan, touch hole, and base of the bore. Repeat if required. With the muzzle pointed up and no part of the body over the muzzle, pour a measured charge down the barrel. It is important to emphasize that you only use charges recommended by the manufacturer. To ensure that your powder fully enters the drum and nipple area, tap the barrel from in front of the lock several times. Center a properly sized, well-greased patch over the bore and press a round ball, a well-greased mini or conical ball with the sprue up into the muzzle. Use only approved projectiles, patches, and greases approved for your firearm. With a ball starter and ramrod, push the round, mini, or conical ball down on top of the powder firmly, but without crushing the powder. It is very important to seat the ball firmly against the powder so that no airspace exists between the ball and the powder charge. A good method of determining this is to insert the ramrod when the firearm is fully loaded and mark the ramrod at the muzzle for future reference. With the gun pointed in a safe direction and the hammer at half-cock, place the recommended amount of 4F or 3F powder in the flash pan. Pull the frizzen down over the pan to keep the powder in place. Check to see if the next shooter is clear so that escaping gas from the touch hole does not injure him or her. Your gun is now loaded and ready to fire with proper aiming techniques. Pull the hammer back to the fully cocked position with the gun pointed in a safe direction and shoot. After firing, wait a full minute to begin reloading. This will allow any remaining unburnt powder and sparks in the barrel to burn out. If a misfire or failure to fire occurs, wait at least one full minute with a gun pointed at the target, reprime, and try to fire again. If the gun still fails to fire, refer to accepted procedures to unload the firearm. Finally, if you have children, be sure to share your love of the sport with them if they have similar interests. My dad and I both did, and we have never regretted our choice. While you're spending time with your children, you're creating a bond that will last a lifetime, and you'll know where they are and who they're with. You'll be giving them something positive to do and reducing the possibility of them getting involved with alcohol or drugs. By the way, don't forget your daughters either. They deserve your time and attention as well. The fastest growing part of our sport is women shooters. Leave your old prejudices at home and include your daughter in your shooting activities if they are interested. This concludes the training session on the use of the Carver Sportsmen Club rifle range facilities. Each of us must observe all the safety rules every time we handle a firearm. It takes only 1 minute or 1 moment of inattention or carelessness to cause a serious injury or a needless problem for our club. We have been here since 1948 without any incidents or accidents. No safety-related incidents whatsoever. Please be aware that that record will mean nothing if one bullet escapes our range and lands in the wrong place. Don't let that happen. Be attentive and responsible like those who came before you. This is Paul Johnson. Thank you for your time and your interest in our club. Enjoy yourself, shoot straight, and most of all, be safe.